Usually, Parashat Behar and Bechukotai are read together. This year, because it's a Jewish leap year, Behar and Bechukotai are separate. And it's good that they're separate because there's a lot of information in each one of the parashiot. It's interesting how in Parashat Behar, in the very beginning, we're introduced to a concept of a sabbatical. Sabbatical meaning the seventh year. We're used to having holidays every year, once a year. We're used to dealing with 1 year at a time. And here we're having a brand new concept called Shemitah, the sabbatical year that happens once every 7 years. Plus we will be introduced to an additional concept called Yovel, the Jubilee year. The 50th year, after 7 Shemitot, after 7 cycles of a sabbatical year, we will have something called Yovel. And what's unique about these years, whether it's the sabbatical or the Yovel, is that they're sanctified. And I thought, as I was coming here, that of course there are no coincidences how in the previous Parasha and Parashat Emor, we were talking about Inyanei Shel Kedusha, concepts dealing with holiness, how the priests have to be careful with their work. After all, they're dealing with a very sacred work. The sacrifices need to be intact, they need to be complete, without any blemishes. There's a lot of discussion about the importance of holiness. And the parasha before that was Kedoshim Tiyu, that we are supposed to be a holy nation. So we have a lot of mitzvot, a lot of commandments that deal with holiness and how to be holy. So it follows perhaps that here we're being told to sanctify, lekadesh, it's Shnat HaShevi'it, Shnat HaShemitah, and the Shnat of Yovel, to sanctify them. So it's interesting how we're talking about something unique about these years that make it holy. The mitzvah Shemitah, by the way, is a very difficult mitzvah in a sense, because for those of you who've had a chance to learn a little bit about it, it involves abstaining from work for an entire year, physical work involved in the field. We're not talking about the abstaining from work for 1 day, Shabbat. Certain categories of work, certain functions are prohibited so that we should be able to experience Shabbat properly. Here we're told, in order for you to gain what there is to gain from this mitzvah of Shemitah, you're not going to do any field work for an entire year. And that's very challenging because our parnasah, especially in those days, our livelihood for an agricultural society depended heavily on working in the field, cultivating the field. So how is it that God is going to command the Jew to commit financial suicide in a sense? No work? So this is a very interesting mitzvah, but it's very, very unique. Unique because of all the special qualities, segulot, the various things that we will gain as individuals from observing properly this mitzvah. It's a segulah that we have no idea how powerful, how special it is if we were to observe it properly. So we'll go through a little bit of what's involved in observing this mitzvah. There are many, many details, and we're not going to go through all the details, but just what exactly is that the Torah wants of us. What is it exactly that we're going to accomplish by not working in the field for an entire year? Well, the closest thing to Shemitah is Shabbat, right? Shabbat is Shabbat Vaynafash. We rest. Hashem stopped creating the world after 6 days. He rested. So we're told Shabbat is a reminder of creation. It reminds us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in a number of days. Those were the days of Asiyah, days of action. This is the world of Asiyah. This is where we act, we perform. And this happens during 6 days. On the 7th day, Hashem says, thank you. I don't want you to work. I didn't work. So take a rest and focus on something completely different that you have during the 6 days. What could that something be? Focus on our relationship, focus on your family, focus on that which is spiritual, not physical. After all, remember what I told you in Bereshit, Beze'at apecha tochal lechem. That was a curse. You will have to work hard to earn a living. You will sweat. But that kilala, that curse, I guess we can call it a curse of sorts, that was only meant for 6 days. And if you want to know why 6 days, well, 6 days has something to do with this world of Asiyah that will last for 6,000 years. So 6 represents the 6 corners that we see in the physical world, north, south, east, west, up and down. It represents basically this world, and they say that is the idea behind the Magen David, also 6 corners, everything about this physical world. But there's a spiritual dimension that many people do not experience, do not know about, and that is only experienced, for the most part, on Shabbat. It could be experienced during the week too, but during the week, because of our physical needs, because of our work, because of our immersion in physicality, we are not in contact, not in touch with the spiritual world. But it's still there. On Shabbat, it is possible to tap onto that spiritual dimension as long as we observe the mitzvot properly. Hashem says, I have a recipe for you. On Shabbat, you will be able to feel something different than the rest of the week, as long as you observe the mitzvot properly. Plus, don't forget that Shabbat is not a cursed day, it's a blessed day. It's so blessed that the Zohar says that all the blessing of the week comes from Shabbat. A lot of people have complained to me that they think somebody put witchcraft on them. And because of that, because of Kishuf, they don't have a Parasha. They're struggling. They can't make ends meet. Somebody hung a black cat, they told me, or something else, and that's what's causing them to have a hard time. And I told them, wait, let's begin with Shabbat. Are you keeping Shabbat properly? They said, no. Shabbat is our best day, Rabbi. That's when we make most of our money. He says, that's where your problems begin. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelecha kehi mekor beracha. We say it in the prayers. Shabbat is the source of blessings. You're throwing your blessing away. Yeah, but what about all those other people who work on Shabbat and make millions? That's a whole different story. It's a lecture for another time. How is it possible that Hashem should bless, even though it's not a real blessing? How should He, why should He allow other people to prosper when they're going against His will? But at least, if things are not going well, that's the place to begin. Make sure that your Shabbat is done properly, so you should be blessed, B'ezrat Hashem, for the following week. So in the same way Shabbat is a spiritual day where there is no curse, the sabbatical year was intended to be a year that is very, very spiritual in nature, where the Jew can connect with God, especially those who have not done so enough. They've been busy. Imagine working a whole day from the morning till the evening. If you don't know what it's like, go to a kibbutz, where they still do that. And you'll get an idea of how difficult it is. Even though today we have tractors and we have machinery, it's not easy. So first thing to remember is that Shabbat is not a time that we experience the kilala, the original curse. A lot of people for some reason do not know that, and they say, well, I want to curse 7 days a week. And not enough that I have 6 days, they want to work the 7th day too. What a shame. Life is not only about work. There are other more important things. But people think that that's what life is all about if they're immersed in physicality. And they don't even know what spirituality is. So Hashem says, I'm going to do you a favor. After all, every mitzvah is a favor. I'm going to introduce to you an entire year of antibiotics that is very powerful. Not once a week, not once a month, right? Once every 7 years, fine. But it's going to be for an entire year. 365 days. It's going to be a powerful medicine that hopefully will teach you and will ingrain in you some very important concepts that you may be oblivious to. Oblivious only because you've been working so hard and you think that that's what it's all about. Life is about work. You got to make money. You got to save money. And of course, this is true. Life is about making money and about saving money, but that's not the ikar. That's not the most important thing. So what does Shemitah do for us? Number one, it liberates us. Zameshachrer. It liberates us from dependency on the land. In other words, we shouldn't think that we're dependent on this. This is what we need to do. This is all we have. No. You're going to be liberated from that type of thinking. It's the wrong way of thinking. The dependency that people have on their parnasah is so strong that sometimes people are willing to steal from others, and to do all kinds of illegal things only because they think they need this. So Hashem says, I'm going to teach you that you don't have to depend on this. You have to depend on me. And once you develop that dependency on me, you will realize that it wasn't your PhD and your profession that brought you the Parasha. You will realize that what brought you your livelihood was me. I will decide how much money you will make. I will decide how you're going to make the money, what career, what profession. And there are people, I'm sure every one of you know, that never went to college, barely speak English, and are multimillionaires. And there are people who know English very well and who have gone to college and have a master's or a PhD, and they're having a hard time. So, where is the Parasha from? It's from Shamayim. It's Mazal. The Mazal, of course, has been established by Shamayim, by heaven. So, remember, it's not going to be because you applied yourself so hard, you worked so hard, and you made so much money, and you saved all this money. Do you know that all that money that you saved may disappear one day? Somebody could rob you of it. Yeah, all kinds of things happen, bad investments that you never thought. You thought it was such a good investment, and a lot of money went into that investment, and all of a sudden, all that hard-earned money disappeared. That's also Mishamayim. So, through Shemitah, we're given an opportunity to learn a very important midah called midat habitachon. Trust in Hashem. Emunah, a lot of us have. We believe in Hashem. Yes, Hashem, you created the world. I see it. So, such a beautiful world. There's so much design and harmony. It makes sense even to non-Jews that this was not something that happened by itself. But bitachon Hashem, that Hashem actually listens to my prayer. He oversees what I do. He actually controls everything, including my parnasah. It comes from Him. He decides. That's something that takes time to develop. Even people who are observant don't fully understand the meaning of bitachon Hashem, and that is why when there's competition in business, they feel threatened. He's competing with me. He's taking away. Lokach mimeni ta parnasah. That is a lack of bitachon Hashem. No one can take away a penny of what is coming to you. That is what the rabbis tell us. If something is coming to you, nobody will take it away from you. And this is also true, by the way, with zivugim. Usually, not all the time, someone is supposed to marry someone. Matches are made in heaven. So, no one is going to take her away from you. No one is going to take him away from you, unless one or the two of them do not behave themselves. There are times when people can lose their soulmate. And I have a whole lecture about that, soulmates. How to identify who your soulmate is. What is a soulmate? But for the most part, you don't have to be afraid. What is meant for you, you will receive it at the right time, unless you've pushed it away. Oh, I don't have time to get married now. I'm going to wait a couple years. I want to make money first. People behave like that, and then, of course, they may lose the opportunity of finding their soulmate. So that is a totally different subject, but I did want to bring it up because this too, this area of soulmates is also Mishamayim. Everything, Akol Mishamayim, except Yirat Shamayim, right? Except for the fear of heaven. We have free will as to how we behave, how we handle people, whether we observe them. So that's up to us. But Parnasah, our livelihood, the children we will have, whether we will have them, what kind of children will they be? How much money will we be? Where will we live? What kind of a house? What kind of neighbors will you have? All of that's Mishamayim. It's not up to us. You don't choose your neighbors. You think you do your own. You can't control everything in life except, hopefully, your behavior, which is difficult enough. But everything else, leave it to Hashem. So a very valuable, powerful lesson of Shemitah is concerning bitachon b'Hashem, trust in Him, and not in your profession and not in the land. That's not where the source of your income will come from. Because this is an important area, if one observes it properly, this will help him in the area of ben adam lechavero, human relations, because people have many, many fights, disagreements. About what? About money. Usually about issues that concern money. And in reality, what happens in Shemitah is that we're reminded, Kulanu Shavim, we're all the same. You're no longer a proprietor. You're no longer the owner of that field. Anyone can come into that field during that year and take fruit that's been growing. We're not growing new vegetables, but there are trees that give up fruit, even if you don't do anything to those trees. You can eat from the fruit. You can take for your family. You cannot grow new things on the land. And other people can come in. You cannot do business with that fruit. En Adon, only Hashem is the master. You're no longer the landlord of your field in a sense for that year. So here we're being taught a very difficult lesson. It's very challenging, is that you don't own the land for this year. you're liberated from working the land. Go ahead perhaps and spend more time learning Torah and doing other things, more spiritual things. Hopefully this mitzvah will liberate you from that dependency that you've been having all this time. There's a cute story about two individuals who were fighting. And what were they arguing about? This land belongs to me, you're trespassing. Sometimes neighbors, they want to build a fence perhaps. And no, you can't build it over here, you have to build it there. All kinds of arguments about the land or about money. In this particular case, they were arguing about a piece of land. This land belongs to me. No, this land belongs to me. Okay, they went to the rabbi. And the rabbi says, okay, let me figure this one out. Who does it belong to? I'm going to ask the land. I'm going to go down and ask the land, please tell me, who does this land belong to? So he kneels down, puts his ear to the ground, and he says to them, the land just told me that the two of you belong to her. Yeah. In the end, that's where we all go. This land belongs to me. We belong to the earth. Yeah. Sometimes people forget that. In the end, we all go back to the earth. So, Mitzvah Shemitah reminds us of the importance of bitachon in Hashem and not in the money. Having trust in God and not in the money. All along, throughout our life, people do have that misconception that they have certain earning abilities, that if they take perhaps 2 jobs, they'll make more money. It's a wrong way of thinking. And I've told many of you in the past that I can show you how somebody can make his entire parnasah, his entire livelihood, in 5 minutes. 5 minutes for the entire year. He's a diamond dealer. You'll appreciate this. I have a 12-carat diamond, not me. Someone has a 12-carat diamond that is clean and is canary color. You like that one? How much is it worth?
Very expensive.
Yeah? 12 carats, canary yellow, clean. Expensive. Would you agree with me that he can make a couple $100,000 profit on this? Profit, yeah? How long will it take him to sell it? It depends, right? It could be 5 minutes if the right buyer comes. It could be several months if the buyer is not there, right? 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, he can make his parnasah for the whole year. Does he still have to work after he sold this diamond? After he sold it, does he still have to work that year? I don't think so. If he chooses not to, I think he can pay his bills, unless he has a big mansion and a lot of taxes to pay. But in 5 minutes, he could have made his entire parnasah, where other people have to work every single day of the year to pay their bills. What happened here? Parnasah is Yidei Shamayim. It's all from heaven. But people think that it's through their effort that they're going to earn a living. It's not so. Shemitah, because it's the 7th year. What's so special about 7? 7 is a holy number. We're talking about sanctifying the year. We're not just sanctifying a year, we're sanctifying the 7th year. The 7 is special. 7 is holy. Shabbat. 6 represents this world, and 7 represents the next world. Olam Haba. The world to come. It's a more spiritual world. So by observing the 7th year, we're reminded that this is what we should focus on. We should focus on the world to come. We should focus on life after death. Not just on this physical, transitory world or life that goes by very quickly. This is not the ikar. You want to build yourself a mansion? Might as well build it upstairs with your mitzvot and with your good deeds. Not here. No, I've known people when I used to work as an assessor to appraise homes. 25,000 square foot with a bowling alley, a theater, tennis courts. It took several years to build. Spent a lot of time and effort, the couple spent a lot of time and effort in all the detail. Which tiles, you can't imagine what they did. And guess what happened after a couple years? They got divorced. So much thinking, so much planning, so much money and effort. And then they get divorced. What for? This is where you build your mansion, your dream house. But people think that this is where everything happens, but it's not true. So the Jew is being reminded, it's to your benefit. This is where you need to focus. You're going to focus now on the seventh millennium. You're going to focus on the world to come. You're going to focus on life after death. In other words, you're going to hopefully engage in activities that will help you get there. It will help you build your mansion there. Not here. Not in the work, in the field, and in potatoes and tomatoes. This is not what's important. Again, this is all happening in the 7th year. A Jew is being reminded, you're going to stop working for an entire year. But wait a minute. I didn't answer the question, what's going to happen to the bills on the 7th year? Who's going to pay for them? So the Torah tells us in this parasha, I'm not going through every single verse in all the detail, but that if you observe properly this mitzvah, you will have triple, not double, triple on the 6th year. So you should have for the 6th, you will be provided for the 7th, where you're not working, and a little bit for the 8th, when you begin to work the field again, before you harvest the new crop. So the Torah makes a promise. That's an incredible promise. Moshe could not make such a promise. Can any human being make you that promise? Don't work for a year and I promise you, you get triple the year before. It's impossible. No human being can make that promise. So what do we learn from this? Not only bitachon in Hashem, an additional important concept. And what is that? Torah min hashamayim. This is proof, one of the strongest proofs that the Torah is divine, because no human being can write such a promise in the Bible, in the Torah. And guess what? It did happen many, many times. The Jewish nation was able to see that Hashem's blessing arrived on the 6th year without fail. Wow! And that's going to lead us to the next question, which is a very difficult question. How is it possible that if the Jewish people saw for themselves that the Torah is divine, that Hashem kept his promise, why did they stop keeping Shemitah? After many, many years, the Jewish people stopped observing this beautiful mitzvah. And as a result of stopping to observe the mitzvah, galinu me'artzenu, we were exiled. That's one of the reasons why the Jewish people were exiled from the land, because they didn't keep the Shemitah. Hashem says, you don't keep the Shemitah? The land will keep it now by itself. There will be no one there to work it. But the big question is, why did they stop observing it? They saw the miracles. This is a powerful mitzvah, that if you just do it right, you will see a miracle, an open miracle. You'll be blessed with 3 years. Imagine, you earn a certain amount of money every year, and here you're told, don't work this year, don't worry. The year before, you will have a salary or an income for 3 years. You could see it. Your accountant doesn't have to tell you. You can actually see it for yourself. Then what happened? So before we get into that topic of what exactly happened, we must realize that what Hashem wants of us in the end, what does he want of us? To you, avadai, you be my servants. I don't want you to be the slave, the servant of some other human being. I don't want you to be a slave of your money, a slave of the land. The goal is, I want you to be my servants. To be my servants, you have to be careful not to give too much attention to other things. A marriage sometimes suffers because of a lack of attention that one is not giving to the other, that he should be giving. Perhaps he may be giving more attention to someone else or to something else. There's only so much time during the day. Where are you giving your attention? Are you giving enough attention to your kids? Sometimes parents do not give enough attention to their kids, and the kids suffer as a result. So time, which is very, very short, is something very, very important. We only have so much of it. What are we going to do with that time? Hashem says, make sure that you don't use that time for things that don't have that much value, things that don't deserve so much of your attention. So I'm going to remind you through many, many mitzvot what is important and what is not important. So in the end, what are the mitzvot? The mitzvot, all the commandments, are to help us litrachek mirgelim ra'im, to help us distance ourselves from bad habits and to adopt good habits. I'm not talking about compensation now in the world to come. Yes, if we observe the mitzvot, we will receive a reward in the world to come. We know that. But that's not what it does for us down here. What is the mitzvah doing for us here? Not in the upper world. Here, it is refining our character. It is allowing cohesion between Jews, hopefully, that they should be united and help each other and care for each other. It is helping transmit the tradition to the future generation. This infrastructure, I guess, or the system of laws is very, very important, because if one is missing, it's like a very big machine missing a part. It will not work well. Simply will not work. And if it does not work well, whatever it was supposed to produce, it may not produce. So therefore, Hashem says, be careful with this mitzvot. It's for your own good. Our whole life depends on this. And in the end, this is the tachlit after all. This is the ultimate goal of what we want to accomplish. To connect with Hashem. To bring Hashem down into this world. That the whole world, everyone recognize Him as the King. So if we don't observe the mitzvah, we're not only not being a good example, we are ruining our life. We're ruining the potential that we had. Such tremendous potential of being a mamlechet kohanim ve'goy kadosh, a priestly nation, a holy nation, which would be incredible. And we will only have an idea of what this will be like, or what it could have been like, when Mashiach comes. Because the way things are today in the world, you look around everywhere, the world has deteriorated everywhere. So spirituality is stepped upon. People do not appreciate it enough. People do not value it. So the only time we will see, unfortunately, I have to say that we will actually get to see what we could have been, or what the world could have been, is when Mashiach comes, when He fixes everything. We were supposed to do it on our own, and elevate this world to a beautiful place. But human beings are very tough. And we've had wars and conflicts all over the world. People have killed each other, and things have not become any better. On the contrary, things are worse today. So hopefully Mashiach will come soon, and we will see what it could have been. In the meantime, a Jew is being reminded through the mitzvah of Shemitah that what is important are observance of the mitzvot, the relationship with Hashem, the study of the Torah perhaps, not the work, not the physical work. Okay. Why can't we put more importance on physical work? After all, if you make so much money, you can buy a house, then buy another house, and then buy more property, and perhaps with all these properties you will be wealthy, and you will be able to give more tzedakah. Remember, the brain is a very powerful attorney, and it could think up of all sorts of ideas, and this somewhat makes sense. Well, so what's wrong with all of that, with that kind of thinking? Yes, we know by now that that's not the tachlit, that's not the goal. But why look down on it? Why minimize it? It's a good thing to have, it's true. It's a good thing to have, but people forget the following. There was once an advisor to the king, a Jewish advisor, who was very, very well liked by the king. He was very intelligent, gave good advice, and the king liked him. He had a very good relationship with him. But as you know, many, many times it happened in our history that others were jealous. Even in this country, in Congress, in the White House, there's jealousy, there's hatred, people don't get along. It's the same problem everywhere. So this Jewish advisor had enemies, jealous. They perhaps wanted the position. They didn't like that the king was so friendly to him. And they tried to convince the king that this advisor took a lot of money from the throne. In other words, he enriched himself with your money. In other words, he illegally took a lot for himself. And he did not tell you about it. You don't even know. And it's true that he was very, very wealthy. He was very well-to-do. But they were saying that he made all that money through illegal activities in the kingdom. They were never able to convince the king, but they talked about it so much that the king says, fine, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to look into it. So he calls the advisor and says, listen, please, in the next 3 days, do me a favor. I want an accounting of everything that you own. All the properties, everything that you have, all the bank accounts and everything. I give you a few days. Please do me a favor, it's important. All right? After a few days, he comes back with a small piece of paper. And in the small piece of paper, there's not that much. And the king looks at it and says, please, don't lie to me, because you're going to make me very upset. I myself know you have a lot more than this. What's this? I know you have a lot more than this, he says, Your Honor, I didn't write on this piece of paper all the real estate and all the money and the gold and the jewelry that I have. Because that I have today, tomorrow, somebody can take it away from me. That does not really belong to me. You ask me what I really have, my real rechush. What I wrote on this piece of paper are the mitzvot and maasim tovim, the good deeds, the tzedakah that I gave. So what you see here is charity. What you see here are things that I did to help people. Because that is in a safe deposit box upstairs where nobody can touch. Nobody can take that away from me. What I have here, you, the king, can take it away from me. What's stopping you? There could be thieves, there could be all kinds of things that will make all that disappear. You want me to write that? That is not my real rechush. My real possession is what I earned and I put away in a place where nobody can touch. The king, of course, was very, very happy with that explanation, and he left him alone. But that's the idea here. The idea is to remind us that our real rechush is not all the work that we do here, is what mitzvot and maasim tovim, what good deeds have we performed that is waiting for us in the upper world. Okay, so this is Shemitah. We hope that the individual learned his lesson through Shemitah, a whole year. Imagine a whole year not working. He has time to think, he has time to learn. But sometimes people don't learn. What can we do? Now imagine several Shemitot went by, and he still didn't learn. Hashem says, okay, I'm going to bring you a Yovel. What's Yovel? 7 Shemitot went by. I need to bring them another injection. The 50th year, which is very similar to Shemitah. Very similar to Shemitah. And in a sense, you have 2 years, consecutive years of not working. The Jubilee year is very similar. No work. It's a whole year. No work in the 50th year, but what's so unique about the 50th year? If you learn Pirkei Avot, you will find that the rabbis divided the various stages in life. When somebody becomes bar mitzvah, when approximately he gets married, what's ben chamishim? When somebody turns 50, what's so special about that stage? 50. You can't get your social security yet, so what's so special about 50? Ben chamishim le'etzah. That is the time that you've hopefully had enough experience in life that you can now give advice to others. 50 years, you've seen a lot. You regret your mistakes, and now you can share your ideas, your advice with others. Okay. How many years are left? Well, Yemei Shenotenu 70 Shana. They average 70 years, so you don't have that much time left. So after 50, really the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. So Yovel is obviously a very, very special year for other reasons that we don't have the time to mention here, but in a sense, it does represent a stage in the life of a person that, sir, just in case you have not made any changes for the better in your life, just in case you still have your old bad habits, just in case you're still stuck with thinking only about making money and more money and more money, then comes the Yovel at the stage of 50 and reminds us, your time is almost up, 50. And what else happens on Yovel that does not happen every Shemitah? On Yom Kippur, they blow the shofar. Usually shofar is Rosh Hashanah, is Yom Teruah. Why should they blow the shofar on Yom Kippur? Because that's what the shofar does, to awaken those who are asleep. We're going to awaken you right now. Time is almost up. You better do something. Time for Cheshbon HaNefesh, time to make an accounting of what you've done and what there's still to do. Perhaps you've been doing the wrong things. After all, we all agree that time is very valuable. It's the most precious asset we have, but there's only so much of it. So Yovel comes as a very, very strong reminder. Your time is almost up. I tell people, that we all know what a calendar is like. We see our daily schedule, we see our monthly schedule perhaps. We can see an entire calendar of the entire year, more or less, and figure out what we want to do this month and that month, what's going to be there and what's going to be here. But no one has a calendar for his entire lifetime. Such a calendar does not exist. So what should be done? I recommend that after 50 or after 60, whenever you want, put in front of your desk at home a sha'on chol. You know what a sha'on chol is? That's the way it's called in Hebrew. It's a hourglass, where you see the sand going down little by little. It's a good reminder that the time is almost up. In case you forget. We forget. Yeah, we think about going on vacation, we think about buying a new sofa, all kinds of things. Hey, look at the hourglass in front of you, how the sand is going down and down and down. So after a certain point in life, we need that. Because if you hit 60, then think about it. And you've been married 35, 40 years, then you're not going to live those 40 years again, all over again. By the time you live in another 20, 25 years, it's over. A lot of people don't like to be reminded of that, but that's their reality. That's the way things are. People are born, people die, but not everybody likes to think about that. So Yovel is an additional opportunity, a powerful opportunity to take note how time is flying, time is going by, and there's not too much left of it. To better understand this idea of taking in this important fact that the time is running out, and that perhaps there's a lot that we need to do that we have not done yet. Think about a loan. Imagine somebody right now wants to ask for a loan from a lender. And the lender says, I'll gladly give you a loan because you have good credit, but you still owe me money from before. Will he give him the loan? No. Even though you may have good credit, as you know, the way it works with loans is that a second is a greater risk. So not everyone wants to take a greater risk. Pay up your earlier debts, and then I'll give you another loan. It makes sense. Yom Kippur, what happens in Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur, Hashem says, I want you to have a good year. I want you to continue to grow spiritually, to have a good connection with me. I'm willing to forgive your old debts as long as you do teshuvah. In other words, if you do teshuvah, in other words, you pay up your debts, I will erase your sins so you can have a new year, B'ezrat Hashem, where there are no hurdles and accusing angels that will interfere with your effort to be a better person. Because that's what these things do. The accusing angels interfere. They don't let us focus. They bother us. So we want to have a clean record so that we can focus properly. So Hashem says, this is what I will do for you on Yom Kippur. Pay up your debts from the past, do teshuvah, and I will gladly erase any leftover sins. In the same way that Hashem does that for us in Yom Kippur, a couple should also be willing to be forgiving of each other, what happened in the past. Otherwise, if there's no forgiveness, it's impossible for them to bond again and to grow again. Impossible. There has to be forgiveness. Now, what's forgiveness? Forgiveness doesn't mean I will completely forget, because that's impossible to tell a person, forget it and erase it from your memory. To forgive means to understand that we're human, and therefore, because we're only human, we need to be tolerant with other people who sometimes make mistakes, who are sometimes wrong, and hopefully those mistakes will not repeat themselves. That's what forgiving means. In other words, forgiving means not to allow past mistakes to control us. That's it, because of this mistake, that's it. I don't want anything to do with you, or the relationship continues to be sour. We must realize that as long as people really want to cooperate, just they may have a weakness. They're a little lazy, or sometimes they talk back. They don't really mean it. Men and women do not know each other well enough to realize that they're so different. A woman needs to know, for example, that she should be careful not to ask her husband to do something when he's hungry, or when he's coming home from work and he's tired. There are certain times that a man is very, very sensitive to any critic, any criticism, or any comment that is not in its place. you're never here to help me with the kids. He's just come home from a long day. There's a lot of misunderstandings because of the nature of the two are so different. Therefore, people have to really get the best guidance if they really want to succeed. Otherwise, they will continuously make the same mistakes over and over again in yelling at each other and complaining to each other, not realizing that each one looks at life from a different perspective. Each one has different things that they value. And the trick to get along is knowing each other, knowing the differences between them, and realizing, it's not coming from the fact that she's upset or nervous. She's just a perfectionist or so clean and demands certain things. It's not because she's bad. In other words, it could be very possibly that we're misinterpreting a person's actions. So I just wanted to add this little idea here that as a result of people being so different, husband and wife who are meant to be together for the rest of their life, they have more of a responsibility to learn about each other than people who are not related or not married to each other. And even then, with others, we also have to be careful, but the more so in a marriage, when you're living under the same roof, try to figure out where the problem lies and ask yourself, is this really important to argue about? Should I make a big fuss about this? This is something so minor. Okay, so I overpaid $50. Imagine the wife tells her husband, I could have gotten this for less. You just overpaid by $50. Okay, so I overpaid. In other words, it takes a little bit of courage because the man's ego may have been hurt as a result of that comment. But if we're old enough and mature enough and experienced enough, we realize, I'm not going to make a big fuss. Okay, you're right. You know the famous story where two people came to the rabbi to argue about something, and the rabbi hears one side and says, you're right. He hears the next one. You know what? You're right. They're both right. So the wife overheard the conversation, the wife of the rabbi. Honey, how could they both be right? You're also right. Everybody's right. It's important to be easygoing and flexible because life is so short, and a lot of the issues that cause friction are really so minor and so silly that why destroy the relationship because of that? So in the same way Yom Kippur, Hashem is willing to forgive us. We're not better than Hashem. We can also forgive and start a new chapter, because if we don't forgive, it's difficult to start, or to continue, I should say, the relationship. It will be with all the scabs, all the wounds. They would not have healed. A lot of times people hurt each other and they don't allow enough time for that injury, for that wound to heal. They continuously poke at the same spot. Give it time to heal. Give it first time to heal. Otherwise, it becomes so painful that after 25 years of trying and making the same mistakes, people just give up. No, it's not possible for me to go back to love them and to care about them. But wait a minute, just for the fact that she's the mother of your children, isn't that enough? Or he's the father? That in itself is something special. Is there anything good in him or in her? Look for the good, not for the bad, because we all have imperfections. So any good quality, I ask many men who are upset, tell me, is your wife a good cook? She's the best cook. Well, you're a lucky man. So what are you complaining about? In other words, there's already something good. You already have something good. Yeah, but she's a messy and she's this. But look, she's at least a very good cook. How is she with the kids? The best mother. Or how is he with the kids? In other words, there's always something good. I don't know people, I really don't know someone who's bad everywhere, in every single area. They maybe exist, but they're very few. Always look for the good. Maybe this will help a little bit to forgive and forget. So Hashem forgives us and says this Yom Kippur is important for you, but you have to make an effort to do teshuvah. And in the same way, when it comes to human relationships, you need to forgive, otherwise you cannot advance. You need to pay off your debts, right? With the loan, here too, you need to erase any debts or any bad memories that you have from the past. But why am I mentioning all of this? Because we're talking about debts. We're talking about Shemitah and Yovel, when this is a time to begin to think, what do we owe? What have we not accomplished? What are our debts to Hashem? But debts can also be financial debts to people. And it's important that I mention this because a lot of people do not realize that if somebody owes money and he leaves this world, upstairs he will not go to Gan Eden. They will not allow him to enter into his final resting place until he's paid up. There was a recent story in the news of Rabbi Grossman's brother in Israel, famous Rabbi Grossman, who had passed away, the brother. He came in a dream, and this is a righteous man and a learned man, the Talmid Chacham. I owe a few hundred shekel to this guy that I never paid him back. I didn't have time. He passed away. He was going to pay it back. And he asked the person, please go tell my brother to take care of this. This was verified. We looked into it. Completely true story. They appeared in a dream to someone, please tell my brother. What's interesting about these dreams, there are many such dreams where people who have left this world came in a dream. Why didn't he go directly to his brother? Why did he have to go through someone else? You know, it's interesting. There was such a story in New Jersey many, many years ago where somebody appeared to someone in the city, someone in the community, go tell my wife, go tell my sister, I forget what it was, to take care of something. And he asked in the dream, well, why don't you go directly to her? Why are you coming to me? You know, what's this? He says, because if she will see me in the dream, she will be so frightened, she will wake up. I will not be able to communicate the message to her. So that was the explanation for that dream. Here, I don't know. Sometimes they are given permission to go in there. You want to tell someone your problem? Okay, but you have to tell it to someone else. In other words, it needs to go in an indirect way. You don't have maybe the merit to tell them directly, or who knows. But it's interesting. We have many, many such examples of how upstairs they were very, very strict about you owe money, you can't go to your final resting place until somebody takes care of it. But they gave him permission to appear in a dream. That, yes, that it should be taken care of. So anyway, all of this is important because we're talking about unpaid debts. And that is why we need a Yovel. We need to realize that we come at a point in our life, there's only so much time left. And Hashem does us a favor with this mitzvah of awakening us with that shofar, which is on Yom Kippur of all days. And the same thing that happens on Yom Kippur is supposed to happen now. Clean up your debts and commit yourself to that which you have not done yet, that which you still have to accomplish. Yovel and Shemitah, therefore, are strong reminders of how life is so temporary and how we should not put too much effort in attaching ourselves to that which doesn't deserve that much attention. Working the land, accumulating money and real estate and all that, because that's not the ikar. Now, in order to impress upon us how life is so short and how it's transitory, in this week's parasha we have the additional mitzvah of freeing, letting go free, the Eved Ivri, the Jewish servant. Whether this happens after 6 years, or whether this happens after Yovel, he's let free. How does a Jew become a slave? Anyone know? We don't believe in slavery, by the way, but there are times when slavery is a solution. Let's just say it's a solution. But within the Jewish community, it was intended as a temporary solution, because Hashem says, you are my servants. I don't want you to be somebody else's slave. Besides, you will be so busy working for someone, you won't have time to do what you're supposed to do in our relationship. So, a Jew can become a slave in two ways. Either he sells himself voluntarily, he doesn't have money, I'll work for you. That's one way. He doesn't have money. A second way is he stole money. And instead of putting him in jail and feeding him, work. That's what they should do. I think in every country. You stole, work. Pay off your debts. Pay off, not as a penalty, but perhaps, contribute to society in a productive way. What would happen during the 6 years, or whatever number of years, that slave was in the house of another Jew, his master? The master was commanded by the Torah to be very, very sensitive to the slave. Why be extra sensitive to a slave? He's a slave. Yes, but the Torah is reminding us, first of all, just because he's a slave doesn't mean that he's any less than you. Remember, don't treat another person as less than you. Treat him as an equal. We just learned it. So you have to be careful, even though he's working for you, even though his status now is very, very low, be careful. Show extra sensitivity to him, not only because you don't want to abuse him, but also because he is in a very delicate situation. You know, there are a lot of people that used to be very wealthy that lost all their money. They've come to my door. People come, collecting tzedakah, and they told me, I used to be very, very wealthy. And they're embarrassed, ashamed, to collect money, but what can they do? They need to marry off a child, they have debts to pay. Be extra careful, sensitive to these people because they feel terrible. But there's something else. The slave who stole money needed to see, wow, look at my master, he's so careful with my honor, with my dignity. What will he learn from that? Hopefully not to steal, because when a person steals, it means that he doesn't care about the person. He has no respect for that individual. He's willing to take away his money, his possessions. Here he's learning, wow, look, my master, he's my master, I work for him. And he has more power and he has the money, and he's being so careful with my dignity. I should be more careful with the dignity of others. So this Eved Ivri was able to learn some valuable lessons, as well as the master was able to, through the mitzvah of being careful and being sensitive to another Jew, also train himself to be sensitive all around. Now, think about American slavery. Do you know, I don't know how many of you know American history, but there was a big, big civil war between those who wanted to own slaves and those who wanted slaves to go free. Why? Why did they want to own slaves? So why did they really? Because they felt that this is very important for their survival, for the economy. Free labor, even though they would take care of the slaves, they would feed them and so forth, but they felt that this was something that was of great value, and they got used to it, besides the point. So imagine, here these people had no problem holding on to a slave, and sometimes even abusing them. And here the Torah is teaching us, no, this is not the time to take advantage of another Jew just because he's down, just because he stole perhaps. On the contrary, you have to learn to be sensitive to everyone. And this is a good place to start, with somebody that you may not want to be sensitive to. What else do we have in the Parasha that is related to sensitivity? The Isur of Ribit. There are many, by the way, mitzvot that teaches sensitivity. We don't have the time to go through each one, but Ribit is another good example. Don't charge interest on a personal loan. I said personal, not business loan, for a good reason. Somebody wants to make a Brit Milah, he wants to a circumcision, right, a bar mitzvah for his son, and he needs a couple $1,000s. Don't charge him interest on that loan. It's not a business loan. He's not buying a piece of property that he wants to invest, and you have the right to be his partner in the earnings. Here, it's a personal loan he needs, a short-term loan. If you charge him interest, then you are enriching yourself, you're not being kind to him. The Torah wants us to be kind, to be sensitive, to be charitable, so therefore be careful not to charge interest. Otherwise, you're taking advantage. A lot of people take advantage. And charging interest is a very, very serious sin. And the money, by the way, that is made from that has no beracha, has no blessing. But I want to just spend the last few minutes on a very important idea that is also mentioned in this parasha, that is related to sensitivity, but from a different angle. The Torah says, "V'chiyamuch achicha." It could happen that your brother will become poor. In other words, it could be that he was doing well for a while, and then he becomes poor. And this is related to Shemitah, because it could happen that people lost money, did not have a good year, did not earn anything. All kinds of reasons people can go broke. So the Torah says, Kiyamuch. In other words, it hasn't happened yet that he went completely broke, but he's on the way. He's on the verge of going completely bankrupt. V'chezakta bo. Make sure you support him. Make sure you hold him up, that he does not fall completely. For those of you who remember the late 80s and early 90s, people needed one mortgage payment to save their home. You remember that time? When people were losing their home or giving it to the bank? Sometimes all they needed to save their home was one payment. With one payment, then they would have figured out, perhaps renegotiated with the bank. That is an example of the chiyamuch achicha. He's about to collapse. He's about to go broke. He's about to lose everything. Don't let him get to that point. V'chezakta bo. Make sure that you hold him before he falls completely. This v'chezakta bo is a very important idea that is discussed in Ilchot Tzedakah. In Ilchot Tzedakah, as I mentioned in the past, there are rules laws on how to perform tzedakah in different levels. One of the highest levels of tzedakah is that you don't give someone money necessarily, but that you help him find a job. You help him find a job. That means you enabled him to stand on his own feet. You preserved his dignity. Because accepting money is not easy for a lot of people to do. But finding him a job where he will be able to work, that's an example of a hezaktabo, that he shouldn't fall, that he should have a job. And the same is true with halva'ah, a loan. A loan can be sometimes a bigger mitzvah than tzedakah. Why? Because the rabbis tell us chesed, kindness, is greater than tzedakah for the following three reasons. Chesed, you can do with rich and poor. Kindness, you can do with the rich people too. Sometimes they need a favor. Chesed, kindness, you do with your physical body. Tzedakah, you only do with money. Here's some money, go. Chesed, you're taking your time. You're hearing the guy's story. You're helping him with your physical body, perhaps making phone calls for him. And chesed is with hametim be'achayim. Kindness is done with those who are alive and those who are dead. When we take him to to bury him, we attend his funeral. And tzedakah is only with those who are alive. So you see, chesed is greater than plain tzedakah. But why is it so special, chesed? Because Hashem is Bala Chesed. Hashem is the one that does kindness with everyone. And that is why in the Amidah, we say Gomel Chasadim Tovim. We describe Hashem as being kind. But why is he described as being kind? Because one of his attributes is to do good even with those who don't deserve it. Chesed is good or goodness or kindness even with those who don't deserve it. And that's what happens sometimes. Hashem is kind and good even with those who don't completely deserve it. Why? Only he knows. Sometimes people don't deserve it. Sometimes we're upset at people. Sometimes we're not in the mood of helping. You have to realize chesed is not when you're comfortable or when it's easy or when you like the person. Real chesed is when it's a little bit difficult, a little bit painful, a little bit uncomfortable. That is when you see the true colors of a person. If he really is kind, or he's only kind when he feels like it, when he's in the mood. Real kindness is, even if it's painful, you're still kind. So the Torah, through all these mitzvot, wants to ingrain in us the importance of being sensitive, of being kind, of hopefully helping out another individual in his time of need in any way we can. But I wanted to add that the Be'chazaktabu means something else, something very important. Even though it means to uplift him financially and to help him stand on his own 2 feet, it also means chizuk, encouragement. A lot of people need encouragement these days. They're very depressed, they're very sad. Rabbis tell us if you give charity to someone who needs it, you're blessed with 6 blessings. But if you encourage him and make him feel good and smile to him, you'll get 17 blessings. So the encouragement is greater, has more value than just the money. He needs $100,000. What can your $36 or $54 do for him? A little bit. But your smile, your encouragement, you listened to his story, you took the time, you gave him a glass of water perhaps. Chesed. This is what chesed is. This is a lot more important than the money that you gave him. So imagine you do both. You gave him and you spoke to him and you encouraged him and you calmed him down. It's a tremendous big mitzvah. What do we see from all of this? That from all the mitzvot that the Torah gives us, Hashem wanted to refine us, wanted to enable us to accumulate many, many merits. Lezakot means that we have many merits, but it also means lezakech, to refine us. So he gave us many, many mitzvot. Through the mitzvot in this week's parasha, especially Shemitah Yovel, we will be able to hopefully strengthen the midat bitachon, the trust in Hashem, which is a very important midah. The more trust one has in Hashem, the happier he will be, because bitachon and simcha go together. If you have bitachon Hashem, you're happy. You have no worries. You depend only on Him. Nobody will hurt you unless it's meant to be. Bitachon is a whole different class in itself. So the more bitachon we have, the happier we will be, and the easier it will be for us to get along with people, to help them in their time of need, because we will be reminded that really there's such a thing as rich and poor. Everybody is equal. When do we see this? In reality, at the funeral, because the tachrichim, the shrouds, are the same for the rich and poor. I haven't seen shrouds with gold lining, right? Everybody gets the same shrouds. As kulam shavim, in the end everybody's the same. So right now, it's only the impression that you have that this one is better off. It's not so. Everybody's the same. Everybody has a different mission. Hashem loves everyone. Therefore, treat everyone alike. In other words, don't abuse anyone, be sensitive. But the more bitachon we have, the easier this will be. Otherwise, we're stuck with thinking that, money and money and money. Everything's about money. There's a saying in Yiddish. What that means is that on shrouds, we do not sew pockets. On the shrouds that we cover the dead person, you don't make any pockets. Why? Because he doesn't need to, he's not taking anything with him. There's no pockets. If you were rich, okay, you were rich, fine, but you're not going to take it with you. In the end, everybody is the same. Just want to finish with a story that happened in Canada several years ago. You may have heard of it. Very famous, wealthy man passed away, religious individual, and he left behind a very strange tzava, very strange will. Besides talking about what to do with his assets, he wrote at the end, "And please make sure to bury me with my socks." Very strange. So anyway, the children presented this to the Chevra Kadisha, who was in charge of burying. They said, "No way in the world. Our tradition is to bury a person without anything on, just the shrouds." The talit, nothing. But he asked, and you're supposed to respect the person, who made a request. He requested very much. I'm sorry, there are no exceptions. Even though this was a wealthy man, an important individual. No, that is the halakha, that is the tradition. We were not going to comply with that condition. And he was buried without the socks. This man left a letter for his children to be opened during the Shiv'ah, during the 7 days of mourning. Who knows? What is he going to write now? What did he write? In the letter, he wrote to them, "By now you must realize, perhaps, that I was buried without my socks." By now you probably realize that. So why did I make that request of you? Just to teach you a lesson. You're not going to even take your socks with you. Just for that alone. We need reminders. We all need reminders, and that is what the Mitzvah Shemitan Yovel do in a very powerful way. So why didn't they continue to keep it? They saw the miracles. They saw the miracles. It's a beautiful mitzvah. Why did they stop keeping it? So I saw Rabbi Twersky explaining it the following way: there are drunks, they're addicted to alcohol, who have recovered from their addiction. They're doing well, and all of a sudden you see them later on going back to their old addiction. Again drunk? Didn't you get out of it already? What happened? Why did you fall back? How did you fall back? So the answer was, because I thought I could get away with it. I'll drink a little bit of schnapps, just a little bit. I'll get away with it. Nothing will happen. I'll still stay sober. Because I thought I can get away with it. After a while, after a few little sips here and there, they went back to their old bad habits. They thought they can get away with it. That's what happened with the Jewish people as well. Everything was going very well with them, but they thought they can get away with it. They can work a little bit more, make some more money, and we'll still have the Beracha. Hashem says no. And that's the lesson of next week's Parasha. Hashem says, I'm going to have to teach you a lesson. You cannot have it your way. No, it's my way. That's the only way. And they had to learn it the hard way, unfortunately. But the good news is that Hashem says, I will open for you arubot hashamayim. I will open for you the windows of the sky. Nonetheless, even today, if you are charitable with maaser, which another time we'll discuss about, tithing, 10%, it is still possible to see miracles even today. People who are very careful with giving tzedakah, people who are very careful with giving maaser, 10%, can still see how they will, B'ezrat Hashem, be blessed, where all their money that they have will be preserved. Not that they will be millionaires, that they will be blessed, B'ezrat Hashem, that their money will be preserved. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. What does it mean that Hashem should bless you and protect you? Hashem blesses a lot of people with money, but do they have protection from the thieves? They made all these millions of dollars, but thieves can come take it. May we all be blessed that Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, we should be blessed, and we should be able to hold on to the blessing. Amen.